What's up, everybody? How's it going? Thanks again for joining me for another BGcast Wednesday live podcast. I hope everybody's doing awesome out there tonight. I hope everybody's feeling great. What's funny is we have Selena Ingalls. What's up? Thank you for being here, Selena. I appreciate you. It's nice to have somebody new here. Awesome. Thanks for joining us tonight. Yeah, thanks, Selena. Appreciate you. It's cool to always see a new face. Before we get to my guest tonight, I have a couple of things that I would like to talk with you guys about. Next week, I don't have a guest lined up. So you know what I'm really thinking of doing? I'm thinking of doing a solo show to end out my season 3. It's been a while since I've done a solo show where it's just you and I'm breaking down certain topics. It's an aspect of BGcast that I miss. I know this season has had a lot of guests. It's kind of been a very guest heavy season, not a lot of solo shows like season 1. But, it's something I miss doing. So if you guys have a particular topic that you would like me to break down from my perspective, please let me know. And, I have a couple in mind, and maybe what I'll do is I'll drop a Twitter post and a Facebook post, or an X post, I should say now, with a couple of my ideas. And I'd like to hear some of yours as well. So that'll be really cool. And before I have my guest on, I want to tell a funny story to kind of lighten the mood. So this all happened, Ratchet Baby. I have never seen you before, but how's it going? Thanks for joining us tonight. So basically, what I was going to say is, about a couple weeks ago, so we have this homeless guy, this homeless teenager. He's not okay. He's definitely Ratchet Baby. Thank you for joining us. Selena Ingalls, thank you as well for joining us. Appreciate you guys. But about a couple weeks ago, we have this, it's this homeless. He's younger. He's a young adult. He's definitely has a drug issue of some kind. And, he walks around our neighborhood, and, we've seen him a little bit, here and there, and we know he's not okay. And I kind of feel bad for the guy. You know what I mean? And so I get home from work about a couple weeks ago, and my wife goes to me, Steven, I think there's human shit in our front yard. And I was like, really? I was like, okay, let's go take a look. I'll be the decisive factor in that to see if it's really human poop. So we go out into the yard. I take a look at it, and I'm like, yeah, that's definitely human poop for sure. And so we have cameras and things like that looking outside. I had a camera for when I had a work van checking it out. So we went through the cameras, and we saw this homeless kid decided to walk by our front lawn in broad daylight in front of children at that, and decided to drop his pants and drop a deuce in my front yard. So, I was like, okay, well, this is kind of weird. This sucks. I've, always been nice to the guy when I saw him. I don't know if he knew that was my house or whatever. So I'm going to the gas station today to get some gas. And lo and behold, who do I see walking down the street but this young adult homeless guy who took a shit in my yard. So of course I'm not a mean person, but I kind of wanted to be like, hey, what were you thinking? So I kind of pull up and I roll down my window. I'm like, hey man, how's it going? And he stopped and looked at me, and I said, hey man, can I have a question? I'm like, why did you take a shit in my yard? And immediately, as soon as I said that, his eyes got super wide. He knew exactly what I was talking about. And I was like, look, man, I'm not mad per se. I'm a little bit disgusted, but I'm not mad. And I was like, look, man, I don't know what's going on with you. I hope you're okay. I hope, everything's all good with you, but please, don't shit in my yard. Don't do that. And I was like, especially in front of kids, because there were kids playing out in the street when we watched it. And I told him, dude, you need to be careful because you could become a sex offender for that. Exposing yourself in front of children in any way, shape, or form. So that was a little interesting story I wanted to tell just because of how it kind of all came full circle today. But nonetheless, let's get to my guests. So I have had these two on my show before. They are, I know, I know. I had to start with this because, Elder, thanks for being here, man. I had to start with this, and yeah, Selena, definitely strange times because, it all came full circle today. And, I think I took the high road, though. Instead of being like, yo, what the hell? Why did you shit in my yard? Like, I could honestly tell that this guy was not okay. So, like, and I wanted to be kind of the light to him a little bit and be like, look, dude, like, you might want to be careful doing this. But as I was saying, I've had these two people on my show before. They are two of my favorite people. And I know, oh, you guys got some fans, Don and Spinja. Here we go. We got some fans, and I understand that, Selena. Thank you. And yes, Elder, I wanted to. I'm not a mean person, like I can be if I need to be, but that's not my first go-to. I always try to solve things with kindness if that works. But nonetheless, guys, again, like I was saying, I've had these two on my show before. They're two of my favorite people. They have newly burst into the scene of podcasts and getting on their feet on the ground with that. You guys remember Don Rogers from the After Dark show, and we've had Canadian Spinja on the show before too. So let's welcome them to the stage. What's up, guys? How's it going?
Good.
This week, good.
Yeah, this week so far it's been good. Yeah. I just want to say hi to everybody in the chat. Good to see you. Thank you for watching. It was kind of neat to got a shout out in someone else's chat. That was cool.
Yeah. No, you guys got some fans. Go Don, go Spinja. Man, I'm loving the love in the chat tonight, guys. I'm loving it. Thank you everybody for being here. Like, I can't thank you enough. So, I guess compared to my little bit of a story, it's been pretty good for you guys. But nonetheless, we have something interesting we're going to discuss first. Spinja messaged me, I think it was last week, and informed me, Don had a little incident, and there was a very interesting thing. Thank you, Selena, for sharing everywhere. I appreciate it. It was a interesting experience for him because there was an out-of-body experience that occurred, and a Spinja bringing Don back to life practically, and I think this really kind of hits the nail on the head that, not only are our connections as couples very strong, and can really make or break us and ground us here in this reality. But it's very interesting to see how Don had like this very interesting control and recognition of what was happening to him. So, Don, why don't you kind of get into this a little bit? I just want to say, first and foremost, I am happy you are okay, for the love of God. Like, I am happy you're okay. So, if you don't mind sharing with everybody this experience that you had, I think it's really profound, and I think it can give us some insights into a little bit of what happens during these moments.
Yeah, absolutely. And to tell it properly, Spinja actually had the first NDE of the week in our family.
Oh, no.
That was the pictures I sent you. She got T-boned by an SUV coming home from work on the Monday, right? And it actually rode off our truck. Like, it was bad enough it set off the driver's side airbag and like
the seat airbag.
Like the seat airbag. Like, this dude said he was trying to stop and slid through 2 lanes of traffic and into a turn that she was like she was turning right, and he still managed to T-bone her enough to write off a truck.
Holy crap, man. Like, that's right? I remember what you said. If you guys want, I can bring up some of the photos real quick that you sent me. Yeah. Like, so let's take a look at this. And I just, this damage, I'm grateful you're okay too, Spinja. Like, oh my goodness, dude. Like, when we look at this right here, like, this is some pretty hefty damage, man. That was
that's the full size pickup. Like, he was moving.
Oh man, dude. Like, yeah, this was and I feel bad for you guys too, because I know you guys really wanted this truck. Like, this was something I remember you all telling me that you manifested for yourselves. And like, I that's what broke my heart when I heard about this, because I was like, man, like they put all this energy into getting this truck, like, and now this happens. So I mean, Spinja, what was going through your head during this experience, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I think a lot of this, I think, like we know the veil's pretty thin right now, and it actually all kicked off, like the whole, like it was a series of events. So I was driving home from work, and it was 6 in the morning, and the road was bad. It was snowy, and I heard my mom's voice in my head. Like I felt her, and like Sunday marked her being gone 11 years, and I just
Mhm.
heard slow down because there was a vehicle coming up behind me rather quickly, and I knew that he was going to pass me, and I just didn't want to put our safety in jeopardy. Like I wasn't going to speed up, but and so I made this decision to turn right onto a side road so that he could get past me safely. And as I was slowing down, and listening to mom, that's when I got T-boned. And if I hadn't have slowed down, if I hadn't have listened, then it would have went very differently. And then
Man, that's
yeah.
I was gonna say, man, like it's amazing how uh that how our loved ones in a lot of ways can shine through and kind of help us during these times. I mean, I've heard incidents like this before when, deceased relatives or parents like come through in a, really traumatic time or a really intense time and give this guidance, kind of like almost like a helping hand from the divine. And you walked out of it unhurt, which to me is like the most profound thing, because yes, like compared to where you were hit, and that's why you have work to do here. You are not done yet. The both of you are not done
Currently.
yet. So like you guys got work to do here. That was in my eyes, that was the divine being like, no, 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 today's not the day.
No.
So yeah. So, and then Don, why don't you enlighten everybody a little bit about what happened to you, and how Spinja brought you back. Like that, I think is really cool. That's one of the coolest parts of the story, but I'll let you tell it.
So the week carries on. Of course, it's very stressful, and I've had like stomach issues before, and like never really thought much of it. So I got home from work on Wednesday, and it was just a typical day. My job's not incredibly hard. I drive a septic truck, and I run a big vacuum and clean portable toilets. Like it's an easy, good paying job. And so we're kind of chilling out in the bedroom, and she said she wanted something to eat. And I got up and I went to try to make her something to eat, and I couldn't even stand at the stove. I just felt that peculiar. I was like, wow, I don't feel right. I got to go sit back down. And so I walked back into the bedroom, and I said, look, there's still a slice of pizza out there. Can you just have that? And I was still kind of like seeing what was going on in my stomach and my chest, because it was starting to get really, really tight and like a grip on it. And it was just getting awkward.
Mhm.
And so, as happenstance does, she ends up getting the call from her estate lawyer about the inheritance that she's been in battle with for 3 years, just as my heart decides it's going to come out of my chest.
Oh
And
my
all like
goodness.
I'm like trying to be cool, and he's getting to like the climax of what they're about to do next, and I'm just like thump, 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 and I'm like, oh my god, and I'm like trying not, I'm like, don't do this right now, and I looked at her, I'm like, I'm sorry, and she's like, what? Because of course I'm like interrupting something really important, right? Like this is hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm having a heart attack, and she's like, oh my god, what? So like
Whoa,
the
dude.
poor lawyer just is about to shit himself. He's like, no, go. So the long story short, 911, lady firefighter comes and like kind of keeps me calm. She looks fairly nervous the entire time because like my pulse is just way off and like not very good at all. So they get me hooked up. The ambulance eventually shows up and they get me hooked up to the heart monitor things, like with the paddles, but they haven't done anything yet. And they're like watching me and they're like, yeah, there's definitely something wrong in there. We don't know if you're having a heart attack, but this isn't right. Your heart rate is soft and like something's not right in there. So he gives me 2 shots of nitro and it's still just like grabbing. And I'm like, yeah, that still hurts. And he gives me 2.5 milligrams of morphine. And in about 30 seconds, I just felt nauseous at first. I actually asked for a bucket. And then I was like, no. And I felt like I was coming out of my skin. And I was like, no. And I felt like I was going to pass out and I was going to be done. And I was like, no. And like, I could feel it kind of pulling. And I was like, fuck up, no. And I was literally arguing in my head with like whatever was trying to do this. And I was like, no. And then something in my head went, no, just for a minute. I'm like, oh. And I was just serene. And I went with it. And I was only there for a second. But Steve, the experience I had was the most phenomenal thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life. When I went there, I felt a comfort that is inexplicable in this reality. I felt a sense of rejoining an energy that was just home. The sound in my ear wasn't even noise, but it was the most lyrical thing I've ever heard. And I was rejoining as part of this. And I was kind of like a gel energy. And I was becoming part of this orange-yellow energy in front of me that just felt like love. And then I hear in my head like a Walmart loudspeaker, don't you fucking dare. And all of a sudden I remembered my life. And I remembered who just said that. And I was like, oh. And I started blinking and I opened my eyes and she's above me holding my hand and smiling. And I just got this smirk on my face like, fuck, I did it again. Because we've talked about this before. I've had several NDEs before.
You've got 9 lives, my friend. I've stated this. I've stated this before on our past shows that you got 9 lives, and Selena says Spinja the MVP. So there we go. And but no, man, yeah, that's wild.
Check this out, though. You have to hear it from her perspective because it's even better.
All right, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
So he was laying on the bed and he was not looking good. And so I kneeled down beside him and I grabbed his hand, and I was getting concerned because I was there when my mom crossed over. I was holding her hand. So I've been down this road before. And I'm just like, I'm trying not to panic, but in my head, like, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, we're just, you're going to kick out on the 5-yard line. We're just about ready to find out our future. My mom left me a gift that I'm going to share with you, and you're really going to. And then I had this visualization. So I'm bitching him out, like, but then I get this vision of him, and it's like it's foggy, but I see him, and he's heading towards it was like an orange glow.
Very interesting.
And
So you saw the orange too. That is so wild. That is so wild.
and so I saw him. I don't know how to describe it. It was like he was being absorbed into it, and I felt his, like, the comfort, and I felt him steering into it. So I'm here and I'm bitching him out, and then I felt this, and I'm like, "Don't you fucking dare!"
Oh my
And
goodness,
then
dude.
he like his eyes started to flutter, and he opened up his eyes, and he had this smirk on his face, and my initial reaction was like, "Oh my god, I can't," like, and then I wanted to slap him a little bit because of the smirk. So
I'm with you. I'm with you. You know, and one thing that I find is very interesting about this whole experience, is you both saw that orange glow, because when Don was describing it, you know, he said like this reddish orange glow, and you know, obviously he was in another state of consciousness at that time. And then you know, you saw that as well, and you experienced that as well. And that's very interesting. You know, that's very interesting. And Don, let me tell you this. I know what feeling you're talking about. I've experienced it myself, one time through an NDE myself, and then a lot of the other times through DMT. You know, so I know what I call it, it's this love, but it's like such an intense, powerful, like it literally pierces every fiber of your awareness, and just experiencing it itself puts you into this state of bliss. And you know, it's almost as if you forget everything at that point in time, because that love overcomes you. But I find that so cool that Spinja not only saw that also, but brought you back, man. It's good to have you here. For sure, man.
And I think one of the most fascinating things on my end of this is something that I've still been running through my head is I had a choice, right?
Oh yeah.
And it's neat because her and I were talking about this, and it kind of ties into being able to help myself as well, because it's basically the same principle. Like, when I've been able to stop things from hurting that I should be in agonizing pain, it's that same type of choice. Like, I got to choose whether or not to come back into this form. I've been able to discuss with my body about things hurting and certain adjustments that I'll make to our reality, right? Because it's your own tiny universe.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly, man.
I actually, from another near-death experience, I am missing an eighth of my left calf, right? And I have an artificial right knee. Since I've been talking to the beings that are within me, my calf muscle has been redeveloping and has better pigment. And
Very interesting.
what I'm saying though is I meditate into myself on a molecular level, and I will go right down to my very base being and discuss the terms of healing with my own body.
That's something I definitely wanted to talk with you about tonight, because you know, out of all the, so we got Selena saying we cats. Yes, you know, a lot of us have really been, you know, been through some shit in our lives, we'll put it that way. And then we got Elder coming on in. It sounds like he opened up his 7th chakra and was ascending to Yesod. And I do, very possible, man, very possible. And, you know, but one thing I want to talk to Don about tonight, you know, I called it an ancient healing system because in a lot of ways it is. It's a lost it's a lost knowledge. It's a lost remembrance that we have. We have the ability to heal ourselves. And Don, at least in my opinion, has found a very spectacular and tremendous way to elicit that healing within us. I mean, a lot of you out there have probably, heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza, and how his meditations and how he healed himself from, I believe it was a brutal car accident that had really, messed up his back, but he ended up, they told him he would never walk again. They told him that he was going to be wheelchair bound for the rest of his life. Yeah, no. And look at this man today. He's walking on two legs. He has completely healed himself. And this is a phenomena that, I've been seeing kind of sprout out. I've done it to myself, although my methods are a little bit different than Don's. So Don, why don't you describe to all of our viewers and listeners this meditation that you do that actually taps into your body at this molecular level to elicit this healing process? And this is going to tie into our conversation about the simulation as well, because potentially, our bodies are even simulated also. And if we have that kind of control. So Don, why don't you dive into it, man? Let's hear about what you do.
I think one of the things that made this the easiest to get into the state of mind to be able to talk to like each one of my cells was when I came to the understanding, okay, the easiest way I can get into this is public education. We know we're given enough to make us where we won't question stuff, right? So take sex ed, right? We as humans are told that, mom and dad do some stuff in the bedroom, sperm touches an egg, and that makes a human, right? That's the long and the short of what we get taught in school, right? That's it. That's our understanding of how human life is made. Well, what is it before that? Like, what is sperm before it's sperm?
That's a good question. Right? Energy.
Okay, but eventually it's just a molecule, exactly. Right? So at some point, you were a single-celled organism that created your entire body, because it's not like our parents were having sex and a brain was transferred. It was a simple cellular structure that knew how to create an entire body. So we're educated and told that, think with your brain, because no, our body knows everything because it made itself. Right? We just kind of overshadow this in our heads a lot. And that's the state of mind that I have to get in to be able to get there, is to look past my brain, because my brain's just the thing that makes me fucking talk. Right? But exactly. What actually knows everything and where all the information is stored is in our DNA. It's in the tiny little molecules that everything in this entire universe is made of. We're just a pilot having an experience. Right?
Oh, absolutely. So, and one thing I want to throw in there real quick about what you're saying is, I mean, you're absolutely right, because the brain, a lot of people think that, consciousness and awareness is brain dependent. And, but if we are true awareness, and that's a concept in yoga. And that's kind of how yoga works in a little bit of a light nutshell, I'll call it, because, bodily sensations bring you into the present time. This is kind of a, aspect of what yoga is in all of its different forms. Like, you have these bodily sensations that you focus on, and this brings you into the present moment. So when you have to think that if we are awareness and we are pure consciousness and awareness, that our body would withhold a lot of that information. It would have that information because, if you are awareness, you have awareness through your body. Like, that is what gives you the awareness of this experience that we're having right now. And that's what gives you this perceived external experience that we're having. But continue. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And for me, once I've gotten into that frame of mind, like, stop believing your brain, it's just a fucking loudmouth, right? I will literally sit there and do like normal breath work. Sometimes I'll do box, sometimes I do Wim Hof. But it literally starts with visualizing from about an inch from inside my, like outside my face. And I just try to observe myself, like say it's my teeth, because I've told you this. I've had 2 broken teeth for several months that should be absolutely agonizing, right? They're broken right down to the root. It's actually why I do most of my shows with my hand on my mouth. But it should be absolutely agonizing. And for about a day or 2, it was. And then I did exactly what I was talking about. Like I will sit there and breathe and just deeply focus on going from just outside of myself to like literally the molecular structure that's inside of my body. Like, I mean, if you were to put every inch of you under a microscope, I'm like, okay, I want to go to that part of my teeth. And I want to make a deal, right? I will do this for this side of the universe if you guys can do this. Like, can you make it stop hurting? And I shit you not, the next day, I haven't had a second of pain since.
Well, tell them about the deal that you made with them, like the actual deal.
I literally told them, like, I used to be a heavy pop drinker, right? Like 2-3 bottles.
Sugar junkie.
Sugar junkie, absolutely. Had a candy drawer, right? I was like, look, I'll knock it off if this doesn't hurt. And like within the day that I made the promise to my body and they knew I wasn't full of shit, it stopped.
So interesting, man. And like that's amazing because when we look at issues such as, tooth decay and especially oral problems, I think we're really what I'm getting at here is, we've been I've said this before on the show. I'm not going to beat the horse dead, but you guys know how I feel about this. But, we've been conditioned to think everything is so hyper complex. We've been conditioned to think our health is hyper complex, and we've given our sovereignty up to doctors in the medical industrial complex when it comes to our health. We've been conditioned to think the solutions to a lot of today's issues are hyper complex. We've been all conditioned to think that everything must be hyper complex. But based on what we're seeing right here, Don has had the ability to heal these parts of himself simply through meditation, which I think is profoundly amazing. And I brought up Dr. Joe Dispenza, just a little bit ago too. He did that as well. So, now we have 2, we have more cases, I'm sure, but 2 that I'm very familiar with. I'm sitting in front of one right now speaking to him. And then we have, Dr. Joe Dispenza. And that's awesome, Don. I think really personally what I feel is, a practitioner of things myself, I do feel like you have an innate ability to go inside and, basically do this almost, I would call it energetic surgery on yourself. And you're doing it through this meditation and you're doing this through, this breath work training and things like that, man. And, that's something for all of the viewers and the listeners out there. Why don't you kind of just give a quick, breakdown of what you do, and how you get into this meditation, because I think there's going to be some people who are interested in hearing on, how this is done.
Well, for me, it really is. You can get it off of YouTube, just about any Wim Hof. I personally like the Clark Cagley one. He has what he uses for a DMT release, right?
Okay.
And I generally use that one. And like I said, it's the visualization along with the breath work at the same time of like I said, just absorbing within myself and then shrinking all the way down into like a single cell. And I'm basically visualizing the way I go through my body. Like if I was literally to come in through this skin cell and I need to go talk to this tooth, I would be able to like visualize every little like nano spot that you would pass through in your own body to get there, right? It is really like, if you can get into the DMT breath work, and like I said, I would highly recommend the Clark Cagley one.
Clark Cagley, I'm gonna give that a try.
And it really does release something, and it just opens a door in meditation that I find when you mix the two, I don't know how better to explain it, that I can just seem to get into that state where I am a single cell.
Well, that's perfect, because I mean, you at least laid out an outline, and that's something very interesting, my friend. I think that's cool, because basically you're using this combination of, breath work, meditation, and visualization. And I think that really kind of lends credence to the fact that, our mental faculties as well as our awareness combined have a very profound effect on not just our well-being, but this reality itself. And that's going to lead us into deconstructing the simulation. I mean, one of the biggest things, we've been talking about over the course of time, is this reality some kind of simulation? And I've definitely, entertained this idea a lot, and I mean, when we look at panpsychism, the newest theory in quantum physics, I wouldn't say the newest per se, but it's new and it's the most hated. Now we have quantum physics, discussing that, we could be living in a very consciousness based reality. So, Don, why don't you give everybody a little bit of a rundown of how you feel this simulation is working, and then we'll kind of break that down, and we will discuss the different aspects of this, because I personally feel at this point in time, if we do have this consciousness dependent reality that relies on us to be observers in order for it to have this experience, I mean, isn't it possible that our outer world is just a simulated projection of our internal world? So, why don't we get into your definition of this, and we'll kind of bounce back and forth.
Okay. For me, I would, like I was saying about how our bodies are made, even, my understanding, or at least what I think how it is that the entire universe is basically an infinitesimal plane of sentient ions, right?
Okay.
So, about the double slit experiment, and for people who don't, basically, sentient ions will act one way when they're watched and another way when they're not, and it basically causes them to collapse onto the perceived form, even if it's a mechanical observation. That's about the quick and dirty of it. So what my current perception is that if the entire universe is a infinitesimal plane of sentient ions, then what is observing that infinitesimal plane of ions to collapse them onto themselves? That, I think, is basically source information, like the frequency that we receive from the creator source. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe that the projection that source puts onto the plane is actually what shapes our reality, and we each receive a certain amount of that frequency from source, right? So, and we as humans are actually frequency projecting and emitting marvels when you think about it, because there's electricity in your body and you project frequency everywhere you go, right? And it's amazing when you think about it. Like, have you ever walked into a room and you knew somebody just didn't fucking like you? Like, they didn't
absolutely.
Even say, they didn't say a word, and their face didn't even look at you funny, but you're just like, oh fuck, you don't like me. It's because that is literally coming off of them, and it's a frequency, right? So we're actually creating our reality in real time because of the frequencies we project as source information. Right?
Gotcha.
So source is creating this reality on the infinitesimal plane, but we're also altering it in real time so source can experience all of it.
That's, I like that, because I personally feel, when you were talking about the conscious ions, which is really fascinating to me, because, when we look at a lot of the theory of panpsychism, everything is essentially consciousness. I mean, light, photons have consciousness. I mean, we look at, like you were saying, ions. Everything is technically an awareness and a consciousness. So, I definitely like that. And what that leads me to think, at least on this topic, is, kind of what, in our interview with Sarah, she talks about consciousness itself does not collapse the wave function, but it is the frequency of said consciousness. And this kind of even dives into, I brought up a topic on timeline hopping the other day, since, that's kind of been, in this reality, we have the ability to access these different timelines. And, this can even play out from this projection that you're stating that the source is implementing into this existence. Because the way I describe hopping timelines is you're not quantum leaping. Like, like I think a lot of people when they're like, oh dude, I want to jump through this portal and then be in the next timeline. It's like, it does, in my eyes, it doesn't necessarily work that way. I think really what you have these higher frequency timelines that you can access through your own growth and your own development. Like, let's say like you just woke up, right? Like, let's say you just became aware, and you just stayed there. Right. And that's all you did is you just woke up and you became aware, but you don't do anything else. Like, then you would play out on that particular timeline. But as you grow and you evolve, in your spiritual evolution, as you increase in frequency, you start bumping yourself up to these higher timelines. And I think really that, from our subjective experience, and I'll get your thoughts on this too, is that because we are a subjective focal point of source, that we're using and we're co-creating this reality technically with source. We're co-creating, source is projecting, and then we're, creating the outcomes. And, and what happens after that is, you constantly just continuously bump in timelines. And I think that's part of our reality. And I feel like we can actually jump into these simulated timelines too through meditation. We can access this within ourselves. So what part do you feel meditation plays in altering our simulated reality?
I think a fair bit. But I just want to touch on something before I lose it. We've actually been onto something lately with like recognizing our programming in order to collapse timelines in our own reality.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that we've been doing is like, we'll call each other out, like, you're doing this, right? And it's not like you're being a bitch thing or you're being an asshole. It's literally just like, do you see this? And we can actually start to pick out our own programmed behaviors. And I find when you do, that's when timelines start collapsing. Like, she's had experiences at work.
Exactly.
Like, do you want to?
Which part?
Go ahead.
I don't.
Real quick. Somebody just want to say Arizona Raven. Hi, everybody. Hi, thanks for being here, guys. Again, appreciate all the love in the chat tonight. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Spinja.
I've
the shit at work.
Oh, it's so my happy little place. The energy. I think it started when the divine masculine started dispersing, because there was he was a father figure, and just I think he's one of us, but anyway, that's a whole other story. But he had one, and then I noticed an increase in the toxic femininity, and it's just starting little bit, and then our company's growing, and so we had to expand to a second bay. So they're like 2 doors down from us. So the boys moved over to the second bay. So that's so there's now there is no males, other than they come for lunch or whatever, because that's where the lunchroom is. But and then it just got right off the hook. And so it was getting to the point of unbearable. And And so anyway, stuff happened. Well, when Dawn went back to work, so kind of some cool stuff. So Dawn went back to work, and because we only had the one vehicle, I chose to work nights. And so that way, and it was also kind of a saving grace because it was getting that toxic. And so I was basically there by myself and trying to raise the energy. Like I was actually trying to push the ugly out and bring, like I was grinding. I had my hands up in the air. I was pulling in source, doing the whole thing. And so this week I ended up having to work days. And the energy in there is completely different.
That's so cool.
It's just it's not what it was, but it's definitely going in that direction. And it seems like where I'm working this week, I'm not actually doing my regular job. I'm helping out in shipping right now because things are starting to get a little crazy. Black Friday coming and everything. And the woman that I'm working with, I adore her, and we have such a blast. And so we're like, I feel the frequency raising, and it's almost like I swear I had to have jumped timelines, something, because it is so different. It's where it should be.
Like
I'm with you.
Just because of the positivity she was putting out, she basically got, part-time pulled up to middle management. Like, I was like, how the hell did you just do that? You went from like working by yourself at night to, oh, you want to come and be like middle management? Like, what the hell? Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
I don't know if it's a promotion. Like right now, I'm just doing it like it's just for 2 weeks because things are getting crazy. But they're also talking about, like, if I do go back tonight, they want me doing both positions. Like they want me doing my old position, and they want me to stay open to do the new one that I'm learning.
That's so cool though. I mean, it's, that's a real, real huge thing there that you're talking about, because like and this is one thing I want everybody to understand, all of the viewers and the listeners to understand, that by ourselves also we are immensely powerful, and when we cultivate, you guys have heard me call it the understanding before, of the nature of this existence and this existence that we're experiencing. When you cultivate that, you tap into some kind of strange power, I guess you could say, and that's kind of what I call it. It's like almost tapping into, I don't want to exactly call it a flow state, although it can, something like that could be considered that, because you're having your reality react to you. You are not reacting to the reality. And I think this is one of the biggest hacks, in this simulated reality that, a lot of people are missing out on, and it's, understanding that, you are this subjective focal point of the divine. You are everything that was, is, and ever will be. And, with that, you have the power within you to alter timelines. Your thoughts create timeline potentials. Like we are essentially a driving factor in this simulated reality, if that is the case.
I totally agree. And I think the way I see it anyhow is like, it's kind of your emotional frequency that you're putting out that actually pulls you towards the timeline. Like exactly what you're saying. You get to a level of vibration and it puts you in a different range. Like everything you do is different. So everything in that reality is going to be different because you're drawn because of your emotional frequency.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm going to bring up something real quick for a lot of people. This is going to be a little bit of, some decent evidence, and I'm going to break it down so a lot of people understand it. So the first thing I'm going to bring up that, I've brought up a couple of times before, we're going to bring up the wave particle duality. And one thing I'm going to bring up is cymatics. So, and how these kind of play in together. You all have heard me talk about this on the show before. Let me just get this video queued up real quick. All right. So the first thing I'm going to share is the wave particle duality. And this is kind of how we're going to break it down. And Don, was talking about the double slit experiment, and this kind of, this very concept in physics plays into that. So when we're looking at the wave particle duality, let's kind of break it down real quick for everybody. So the wave particle duality is a concept in quantum mechanics that quantum entities exhibit particle or wave properties according to the experimental circumstances. So in layman's terms, we're going to kind of lay it at that, is particles, these molecules or these photons or these electrons that we're discussing, we can choose to see them as particles, or we could choose to see them as waves. And, and in my opinion, and I know Don probably agrees with me on this, is if we all started to view this perceived physical existence as a waveform, as a wavelength, as opposed to being some kind of solid matter, I think what this would do is this would open up the door to an expansion of physics itself. But you also have to think, guys, we in our bodies, just as Don was talking about, we have these molecules, these particles in our bodies. But if we choose to see them as waves, okay, this is where frequency and vibration comes into play, because we alter through our consciousness and our awareness the frequency and the vibration of ourselves. So that's the first point I'm going to hit home that Don was talking about. The second one, I'm not going to watch the whole video. We're not going to watch the whole video. We're going to kind of get into it to kind of, hit the point home of what we're talking about. But this is actually one of my favorite videos. And the reason being is it shows cymatics in its full glory. So let's just take a little bit of a look at this, guys.
The film you're about to see has no characters. If you spare a little of your imagination, it is a film to describe to you the effect of cymatic frequencies on matter.
So this is kind of what I'm using to describe to everybody what we're talking about here. So you see, when we push sound waves, different frequencies, through different media, whether it be a non-Newtonian liquid, we saw the sand on the Cialdini plate, we even see drums moving water, which I think is found in this video too. See the drums in water like this. But as you guys can see, I'll if you guys want to watch the rest of the video, I will drop the link in the description when we're done here tonight. But nonetheless, this kind of sums up what Don and I were talking about, because if we view ourselves, our being, our awareness, and our physical body as a wavelength, as opposed to particles, all right, we see that we have this frequency, we have this vibration, and you see what happens when we take these vibrations and we put them forth into different mediums. Our body can even be one of those mediums as well. And you see that this beautiful geometry starts to form. So you have to think, guys, you know, Don probably agrees with me on this too, and I'll get his thoughts, but we're emitting this geometry at all times. And I feel that this geometry is a language that the divine universe understands. And with this language that we emit, this symbolic language, this is ultimately like the cheat code. These are, you know, if we're going to be using gaming analogies here, you know, it's almost like these cheat codes that kind of put forth into our external experience. What do you think about that, Don? I think that could potentially be something that we need to look at a little bit closer.
I think you're dead on there, because like, and even from an inside perspective, like your moods will also affect your vibrational frequency. And even think about it on the inside of your own body, right? Like when you're pissed off, what happens? Your blood moves faster, right? Your molecules have literally changed their vibration. You're sad, everything feels very lethargic and everything slows down, right? You just feel like blah inside, right? It actually changes your resonant frequency, right? So when you change your resonant frequency, it's going to change what you're attracting in the universe.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that. And I think too, like, you know, like because, you know, we see a lot of people who've been, you know, we see how the universe, the divine, expresses itself in sacred geometry. You know, if anybody's really interested, I did a whole video on this, excuse me, back in season 1, you know, with occult symbolism and how these symbols, you know, manifest into our physical existence. I mean, we see the platonic solids, you know, we've seen the flower of life in many different instances. And I mean, we see the Fibonacci spiral, the crown chakra pattern all throughout nature. So this geometry has to be some kind of language that, you know, even though the divine understands our intentions, our actions, and things like that, something tells me that this is what ties it all in together. And I think, you know, when a lot of people, you know, they think of, you know, hacking the simulation, they think of doing it through an external means. And, you know, but really, you know, our existence, one of the one of the things in our existence is, you know, we see that there's a very huge internal aspect to our experience. And apparently some people don't have internal dialogue. That baffles my mind because I have internal like movies, like I'll have imagery like play in my head of things like, and I'm just like, but you know, nonetheless, for those who do, you know, understand the internal experience, you know, this is a very key integral part in hacking the simulation.
I think you're right, and you know, the whole internal dialogue thing. Let's play a game of like, didn't know that wasn't normal. Like most people don't have the third eye visualization, like exactly what you're talking about. Like when I imagine something, there's a movie going on in here, right? Apparently it's like only 20% of the population actually does that. There's a whole list of them that I guess it's not neurocognitive,
Divergent?
yes, neurodivergent. Had a moment there. But most neurodivergent people have these traits, right?
Mm-hmm.
With a lot of people in our group are neurodivergent.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And you know, there's a lot of people. You know, it's actually turning out that this is a you know, almost a superpower in a lot of ways. You know, like we've been conditioned to think, you know, that, you know, a lot of these people who are on the spectrum, you know, people who have these neurodivergent traits, you know, I myself, I'm technically I got a full medical diagnosis for adult ADHD. Like, I mean, doctor wrote this man has ADHD. Like, you know, so I that's, you know, it is. And that's something I think that also plays into it. I think a lot of us who have these, this is not a, you know, illness or a disabilitating thing. It's honestly, I feel, a different state of consciousness. It's potentially a new state of consciousness, or it is something that existed long ago that is now resurfacing, because when we look at a lot of us who are in these categories, whether it be neurodivergent or a little bit on the spectrum, vice versa, we have the ability to see and experience this reality in a way different way than your typical and your average person does. So I think that also too, maybe that's why we have a knack for hacking the simulation, man. Maybe, and I've always theorized that, and a lot of people, I've said this before, but, I think a lot of us were born this way, not the neurodivergent thing exactly. Maybe that was a physical manifestation that allows us to be the way we are here. That is, like, I guess, the best way I can describe it. But, a lot of us were born this way, and it was just truly coming into the realization and the remembrance, and what did Arizona Raven said, I have a high IQ, makes me weird and blunt. I totally get that. I think a lot of us, have high IQs and we don't realize it, but no, man, I think we're onto something, Don. I think, we're kind of getting closer in this puzzle. And I think that's really cool because, based on your experiences through the, how you heal yourself through meditation, and, we're looking at this reality that people think that, yes, Arizona Raven, remembrance, I love it. And, we look at this reality and this huge internal aspect that we have, and that is the key to hacking the simulation, at least in my eyes, and and in your eyes too. It is the internal aspect of it. We're not going to be able to rip open, a portal, not just yet, anyways. Maybe eventually, but we're not going to just be able to rip open a portal. And honestly, man, and this is one thing I'll leave everybody with before we hop on to the next topic. Okay, the ultimate way to step out of the matrix or the societal Maya, because I don't like using matrix anymore, is from within. It's a state of being. It's a state of it's a way of life, and it's a state of being. You have a lot of people out there. I know we've talked about this on the show. People like Andrew Tate, who thinks money is the way to exit the matrix. And we have a lot of people, a lot of these, different masculine guys that are coming in, and it's a constant returning to self. Yes, Selena. Yes, you guys are on a freaking roll in the chat tonight. You guys are freaking thank you so much. Like, no, I'm really loving the love, man. And yeah, we got Woo Riders DG. I know that's one of your friends, Don. He said, wow, what a wild evening. What's up, man? Thanks for being here. But nonetheless, man, that is it. It's from within. Money's not going to make you hack the simulation. I mean, yes, it could potentially make you more comfortable here, but more money, more problems sometimes, man. And you kind of dive into a different kind of darker world going that route, at least in my opinion. The way to hack the simulation, man, is going within. Bottom line. And I think you definitely agree with me on that, Don. And so the one thing I want to throw out there tonight, I'm going to see if I could pull the reel up that I've been seeing, but there's a theory. It's not a new theory, right? It's an older theory. Not going to be able to pull it up on here, unfortunately, because it's in my other. Oh, Kyle, thanks for joining us tonight, man. Good to see you here. If the Spinja and Don, that's Kyle from the Brothers Blue. Yeah, I didn't know you guys watched that episode. Yeah, so he says, I was just talking to my world history class about the wave particle duality and the quantum revolution. That is awesome, Kyle. I really love to hear that from you, man. You don't know how happy that makes me to hear that from you, dude. That's awesome. Keep up the good work. But the theory, it's not a new theory. It's an older theory, and it's just kind of resurfacing. I was talking to my friend Ryder Lee from Raised by Giants about it today too, because he's kind of knee deep in the UFO seen and a lot of that information. But so there are these reels surfacing around. So the president was Jimmy Carter. So apparently, if a lot of you here in the States remember, Jimmy Carter in the beginning spoke openly about his UFO experience that he had. And he was one of the first presidents around that wanted to do a full disclosure. Arizona Raven likes Ryder Lee also. Awesome. I guess Ryder's got some fans in here too. That's perfect. But Jimmy Carter, was really, really adamant about disclosing the existence of UFOs and extraterrestrials. So he wanted to be briefed on the classified documents. And apparently, after he was briefed on these classified documents, he cried for 3 days. Our friend Chris said some funny things about that. He called him a poof for crying for 3 days. So, but apparently what he found out, it's really fascinating. And, potentially I might do my show on this next week. You guys can let me know what you think. But he found out that apparently, according to this paperwork, now buckle your seatbelts, everybody. I'm not saying I agree with this, but it's very interesting. And I think it does play into what's going on. That human beings, we don't necessarily have a shared soul complex or a shared collective consciousness, that we are just merely vessels for higher dimensional and extraterrestrial beings who wish to come and experience this existence here in this physical realm. Now, Don, I want to get your thoughts about this because, I have my own thoughts on what I think is going on. And I do think that's a possibility, but I think it's not as black and white as that. But, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, man, because we're sitting here talking tonight. Do you think that could potentially be a possibility? I mean, one of the biggest things why I think that could have something to do with what's going on is, and this is just my opinion, we're not in the golden age anymore. Like, when we talk about the times of antiquity, with human beings, supposedly, things were allowed to come and go as they pleased back then. We had interactions with a lot of different things, whether they're extraterrestrial or not, I don't know. But, this is something that we supposedly experienced in the times of human antiquity. But now there's something else going on. I think the fall of Atlantis had a lot to do with it. But things can't come and go as they please anymore. If you want to come down here and participate directly, you have to hop in a human suit. So I want to hear your thoughts on this, man, because this is interesting. I know it's not a new thing, but it's just starting to resurface. And it's just very thought-provoking.
I can honestly say with the amount of transdimensional experiences I've had on purpose OBE once, our consciousness is entirely shiftable. So the idea that something could just jump into, like, shift a consciousness into a human, I fully think that's probable at the very least. And I think that would also do a good job of maybe explaining. A lot of people have the understanding that like only 20% of the population on Earth is actually normal, like people like you and I.
Mm-hmm.
People, right? Which, if that were to be true, then the entire idea of the other 80% being soulless aliens who think they're human because they've probably gotten amnesia too is also probable.
Mm-hmm. I think so too, man. Yeah. No, I'm agreeing with you.
That'd be my hot take on it anyway, just having thought the thought. But yeah, like I've personally had my consciousness in different realities, and I do think that there would be a way that something more advanced than us or from another dimension or outer space could quite possibly have the tech to be able to occupy a human body.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the biggest things, man, I think this is where, a lot of collective humanity has had a disconnect, with, I'm going to say like, just basically the mechanics and the psychology of how not only we humans operate, but how a lot of other things could potentially operate as well. And my thing is this, is if I was some higher dimensional entity, or if I was some extraterrestrial entity, we'll put it like that, and I wanted to observe and observe humanity, or even, partake in humanity, I would do one of two things. I would make it look like I was never there, which is, that's why a lot of the mainstream science is asking, where are the aliens? We haven't seen them. The universe is so vast, but where are they? And that's one reason why I don't think we've, as a collective, I know each of us have subjectively have had different experiences, but that's why I think, a lot of us, the collective, we haven't seen aliens, or, we haven't encountered them. And I also, if I wanted to observe and partake in humanity, I would look like one of them. I would dress up as one of them. I would walk around like one of them. And, I would blend in. So I think this is something a lot of people are missing the point on when it comes to this. And I'm going to sum it up with this too. Like, I think it's half and half. One of the biggest things that I've seen when it comes to a lot of the questions and the answers, that we're looking for, that we get to these questions, very rarely do they sway in either end of the extremes or the polarities. It always seems like they sit right in the middle. They sit right in the gray. And you brought up a very interesting point that I've had experiences, myself, dude. I don't think that everybody walking on this planet is a real human being. Absolutely not.
Yeah. I think where I would go from there is, have you had experiences where you were asleep and experienced in a completely different reality for what seemed like weeks or months?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what I think the whole key to this is I think what these aliens are possibly doing is something that we're actually able to do. And the only thing is we've lost the ability to, because we have what Karen Holton refers to as those transdimensional experiences. I have them all the time. I had one the other day where I was gone for the day I had my cardiac incident. I had also been away for 3 months in a transdimensional experience. Like that night. Anyway, I think there's something that we're able to do where you can selectively transfer your consciousness to the different realities in which you exist. And I think,
so.
Right? I think it's like a dial on a radio. Everything you're experiencing during your sleep time is just another version of your conscious awareness in a different reality. And the only reason you're tuning into it is because you guys are on the same frequency, and you don't need to do anything in your body here, so you can hear there.
That's a good point. I've had dreams where, a lot of my dreams in dude, I want to say at least the past 5 to 7 years have been in other places. Nothing related to Earth, nothing related to my everyday life, nothing. And I mean, I think I've talked to you. I had a dream about, I remember it because it was so vivid, that I was in some really strange dimension talking to these 3 talking heads. And, we were like sitting there laughing, having a very interesting conversation. I don't remember the whole of it, but the part that I do remember the most is when they all 3 of them turned and looked at me and goes, "It's going to get so obvious that it's stupid." And I looked at them and I was like, "What do you mean?" And they go, "You know what we mean." And then that's how, when I ended up waking up. I mean, I think they're talking about, the unraveling of everything that's going on at this point in time. But no, I think we do have this ability, and I think there's a deep spiritual part of me though that's like there's no way that that's the entire truth. I'm getting I'm getting a cosmic no, that's not the whole entire truth. I think one thing that we're dealing with here is, yes, we deal with different outcomes from potential timelines. Number one, also as well, anything coming from the government should be looked at with high discernment, very, very, very high discernment. who knows if that's just what they wanted him to see, to fuck him up enough. I mean, he cried for 3 days after that happened. Maybe they did not want him revealing the whole truth, so they gave him a half truth, and a half truth that was enough just to mess him up, to not want to try to disclose the whole truth, you know. And that's kind of like the psychology of governments when we're looking at it. At least that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think that it could definitely be both. Like, I don't think it would be hard to break a normal person with what that higher levels of the government actually withhold from the regular levels of the government, we'll call it. And if they showed them half the shit, most normal people would probably go home and shit themselves, right? So I absolutely think if they gave them a little peek into behind the curtain, it might have been enough to make a what did Chris call him, a poof? Poof.
A poof.
Good.
A poof.
Yeah,
that's the nice word. That's the nice word for it, you know. But we all know what word we're thinking about. But yeah.
I think that there are stuff that could definitely have been given to him just to break him.
Oh, like 100%, man. Yeah.
Like, you just, here, we'll give this guy, oh, you're gonna be nosy? Here's enough to drive you insane. Like, go home and go blah 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 blah. Yeah, it's probably exactly what they did. Now we'll shut the fuck up.
Right? Well, you know, I mean, the governments, you know, especially the U.S. government. I know Canada does it too, but you know, governments love to gaslight, man. like the gaslighting and you know, half truths. That's how they get away with you know, revelation of the method and karmic retribution. So, you know, those are the 2 points. But no, I wanted to bring that up, and I wanted to chat with you about that tonight, because it's starting to surface. And, you know, part of me is like, yeah, it's a cool thing to entertain, but at the same time, you know, if somebody, I guess, buys a house in that train of thought and decides to live there, that's definitely not a good thing either, man. So before we wrap things up, this is one last thing I wanted to ask you about and get your opinion on, man, because you and I are very similar. You know, there's a lot of people who think now, at least in a collective sense, we've entered some sort of higher timeline. You know, Trump winning here in the United States, you know, him getting together this all-star fucking cast of people, supposedly. I mean, he's got RFK, he's got Elon. I mean, he's also got, you know, the weirdest thing, Bernie fucking Sanders. Like, that is the most out of left fucking. Yes, Bernie Sanders is working for Trump. Like never. I thought I at least would be struck by lightning twice in one place before fucking Bernie Sanders, a Democratic Socialist, would be working for Trump. But yeah, this is why I think something weird is going on, and that's, I think. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm open to the fact that we could potentially be on a higher timeline, but I think we're being miraged right now, and that's something I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
This is actually more my area.
Let's hear it.
I went on a deep dive, and you know, I was observing a particular movement, and I learned a lot from it. But one of the things that I took away, so this is like, I'm kind of asking questions here, and I'm like, is that it was said that, like, with Trump's last administration, he picked a lot of people that basically he wanted to throw under the bus and expose.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, and I saw a post or something, and like, and we're going back, this is probably about 4 years ago. Like, I saw what happened at the Capitol. I actually watched it, like, I was watching it live, and you know, like, I was pretty enmeshed. And so the whole thing, like, putting Fauci out there, it was implied that, you know, like, because he knew who and what he was, that's why he put him in the position that he did. And so based on that observation, it's like, well, then maybe if that's true, then is that why he's got Bernie up there?
That could be it too, you know, like the this is the thing, and it's like, you know, and yeah, I'll bring it up one last time. This will be the last time for season 2, I promise everybody. But I've seen this over a very long span of time, you know, and throughout the now almost 2 decades I've been watching this, to me, it just, a lot of it seems too good to be true, because when we look at how things have played out in the past, you know, we believe something beneficial is going to come around the corner, but then there's a sleight of hand. There's always something on the back end. And this is just how this invisible college and this parasite class, this is how they operate. You know, like their ultimate goal, even though they are losing power at this point in time due to people like us 3 that are sitting here and chatting, you know, they're losing control, but they're trying to do everything that they possibly can to, you know, maintain some kind of control. And right now, I personally feel we're being miraged. You know,
Yep.
I think we are being miraged. Starseed, Jim, thank you. I appreciate that. Awesome. Thanks, man. Thank you so much. But I think we're being miraged, because when we look at a lot of the things that are happening right now, I mean, to me, it makes sense. You know, you look at the 5D chessboard, right? And I actually found a way to break down 5D chess for everybody. Maybe you guys will like this. But so 5D chess is moving a certain piece, right, that will have a desired effect 10, 15, 20 steps down the line. It's almost like moving a single chess piece and it having a butterfly effect that ripples out. And basically, that one move will set off this cacophony of events, or this chain of events that will lead to this desired outcome. So it makes sense for me that, you know, when you're looking at a 5D chessboard, having 2 roads to the same outcome, you know, because ultimately their game, they win, we lose constantly at that point.
Yep.
So like that's where I'm coming from on it. And like, you know, I know a lot of the conscious collective has gotten looped back in. You know, they think, you know, oh, we're in this fucking golden age now, like woohoo, like fucking yeah. I know, right? Like go ahead, yeah.
Okay, so going back to the deep dive, this is crazy. So this is the part where, like, I'm on the same page. Like, I am very, very cautious optimism, because I also watched the Republican National Convention back during that time. And one of the things I noticed was a golden statue of Trump wearing, like, he was in boxing gear. And I saw that. I'm like, golden idol, false idol, what's going on there? And it's interesting, you know, like with you bringing up 5D chess again, going back there. Like I was really, it's not that I was hopeful, but I was curious, and it actually taught me how to research. And a lot of those posts refer to 5D chess, exactly what you were saying.
It's you know, and it's like that's why, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm not open to this being a good thing. I absolutely am. Like, you know, like I really am. Like, if this is really that, there's a few things that I haven't seen yet that, at least in my opinion, that would really give me the solidification that yes, we're on a higher, better timeline. I do think we're in a better place than we once were, but like I said, I think we're being miraged for the sheer fact that this is how these people operate. And it's not that, again, it's like, I'm not the guy and we're not the people who are just always looking for something. It's, and I think that's kind of the flack that we catch, a little bit in this community, and especially from like, the cult mentality of the right and the left. It's like, we're not, it's not that we're always just looking for something. It's that we have, we've seen that this is not exactly how this always plays out.
Yeah.
And I again, I think a lot of people, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying like don't enjoy anything. I'm not saying like don't take a breather, because yes, I mean, at least in this instance, in my opinion, we're going to stay in apocalypse when potentially for like another 4 years. If Kamala, or however she likes to say it, was elected, we probably would have moved into apocalypse. Maybe, I don't know, but but that's kind of where I'm at. We just need to observe peacefully, not get attached to this outcome, this situation.
How I'm viewing it, like I'm hopeful. Like I hope that it's real. I really do. But if anything, I think we've been given some reprieve if it's not. Like we can get ourselves together. Things don't seem to be coming as hard and fast. Like I think there's going to be some relief for us to maybe get our ducks in a row. And even here, I'm not sad that that he won, because it also puts Sockboy on the spot too. Like he's being held accountable, and he won't take any crap. And there's enough of us here. Like, tell me if this is a coincidence. It's all been like, like bring in the refugees. Dawn and I were homeless 2.5 years ago. We didn't have a place to go. We've been here for generations, and I'm going to throw it out there. I have Ojibwe roots, so anybody that wants to say, no, I was here first. Because people like to throw that in our faces too. And so, they won't cancel Christmas here. I know that, but a majority of our nation now does not celebrate it. But it's too lucrative to cancel it. And so suddenly, after the election, he seems to remember that there are people that live here, that been here for generations, and actually celebrate holidays and stuff. I guess he gave him and his big heart gave a huge donation to the Toronto Santa Claus Parade for its 120th anniversary. It's like, what? Did you actually acknowledge a religious holiday? Something that's been observed in our country for how long?
That to me, no. And I mean, no, again, it's I'm kind of in the same boat as you. Yes, it would be fantastic if this is where we're finally gaining the traction and the momentum. But again, it's like I think a lot of us still in this community, and I'm not bashing our community at all, I think a lot of us still get looped in. And what they did is they definitely repropped up the illusion of choice very heavily this time. We could have seen two things happen. Is we either saw the power of intention and mass effect here in this country, or we saw another election where somebody was placed for whatever specific reason.
Yeah.
But, this is where the plausible deniability starts to come into play, because even if they did that, even if they did, they have the votes that can showcase that they didn't do that at all. So, it's very interesting times we're in. Again, I think you two have really good heads on your shoulders when it comes to, observing this situation objectively, which is what we all should be doing, everybody out there. I know a lot of people want to a lot of people are done and they're like, oh, they want to throw up their arms and celebrate. I'm not telling you not to. I mean, go out and have a good time if that's what you're looking for, you know, and enjoy yourself, but be on your P's and Q's. Because if there's one thing I've seen in my almost 2 decades of looking at this now, there is something around the corner. And if there is not, I'm going to be highly surprised, even myself. For sure, guys. So do you guys have any closing thoughts you would like to leave with the guests?
I think the biggest thing I could say about that whole situation is my personal opinion is the entire societal construct is the trap that we're all looking for. Everybody talks about the trap. It's everything that you buy into in society. We were not meant to live like this. We were meant to be of the earth, not on it. And I think we are in the midst of an entire puppet show, and we're just things being moved around right now. We're not supposed to live like this at all.
I completely agree with you on that, man, because I personally feel at this point that it is. We just need to kind of stay on our P's and Q's, and we need to understand that this is a show. There is some kind of world stage at this point in time. And just guys, you know, again, I think I've beaten this horse dead. Right now, our biggest tools in our tool chest are our sovereignty, our discernment, having no attachment to these outcomes, and observing peacefully. Because, you know, when you have no attachment to these outcomes and you just observe from a peaceful stance, if something goes awry, it's almost like you had peace in the chaos. And that's definitely worth what I will leave everybody with. And as well as, guys, remember, hacking the simulation is not done from without. It's done from within. And it is moving into a new state of awareness. It's moving into a new way of being, and it's moving into a new way of life. That's how we hack the simulation. And we hack it with our frequency, guys. That's why it's very important to do your inner work. That's why it's very important to cultivate your understanding of not only the true nature of yourself in this reality, because when you do that, you start to open your eyes up just a little bit more and you see things a lot more clearly. And we'll leave it at that. Guys, I have, that's what I just did while we were chatting. I threw Spinge's link down in the description real quick. Don, I have both of your links. I have your YouTube channel and I have your Facebook. But if there's anywhere else anybody can find you to, please let them know now.
No, I think you've pretty well nailed that. And one thing I did want to say before we go is, guys, you have a choice in everything. And in my case, even in death, as long as you got somebody that can holler at you from it, you know.
Yeah, and ladies, don't give up. You know, like you can, if you guys have the connection, you can communicate with him.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You know, we're gonna record Spinge's voice, and we're gonna put a thing on Don that if his heart rate goes below a certain beats per minute, freaking Spinge's voice just starts yelling out of this loudspeaker.
Don't you
fucking dare! I'm like, yeah. So, guys, we had great show. All thank you, Selena, Arizona Raven. Thanks, guys. I want to say, you know, tonight the chat has had more people in it than ever. I am blessed. I am grateful that all of you are here. Listening to us, and I want to thank you personally. It's everybody. You all are the reason I do this. I don't really make money. I do this to help people. So that's pretty much it. Thank you, Selena. Very articulate and wonderful interview. Thanks. I appreciate that, guys. Well, nonetheless, thanks again for joining us for another BGcast Wednesday live podcast. I will be back next week with a solo show. We are going to do a solo show. One thing I'm going to start doing for season 3, guys, when I do solo shows, we're going to keep them at 45-minute tops. We're not going to go into the hour and the hour and a half margin because I want to keep you guys engaged. I want to keep you guys interested in what we're talking about. And in all reality, some of these things that I break down, I don't need a whole hour. So, you know, we're going to be keeping the solo shows at 45 minutes tops. And one last thing before we leave, Arizona Raven says, you two are adorable together for sure, guys. Thank you, Selena, for the subscription. I appreciate that. Everybody have a good night. I'll see you next Wednesday. Don and Spinja, if you can hang out for a minute as we sign off. Take care, everybody, and have a fantastic night.